Hi, everybody. How are you? This is Jim Prusek, physiotherapist here at the Pain PT. Appreciate all your support. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And I'll continue to put out content to help all of you on your journey out of somatic symptoms. And today we're going to talk about stress. We're going to talk about primary stress and secondary stress and how this relates to somatic symptoms. Both very important, two things you want to address, especially with these neuroplastic conditions we're called, or nociplastic conditions in the body. These are conditions where there is not an identifiable organic cause. There's not a structural cause in the body that's contributing to or is the source of your symptoms. And so we know this from a lot of the research. I've been talking a lot about this, how chronic symptoms many times are not issues in the tissues, not issues in your body. They're issues from the brain and that trickle down through your autonomic nervous system into your body. So when we talk about that, we're talking about stress. That's a general term here, but it pretty much covers what we're talking about. This is stress symptoms in the body, stress symptoms from your brain. I call it BS, brain signals or brain sensations or brain signals of stress that go into your body and cause bodily sensations, more BS, bodily sensations. But the cause is from the brain, and the cause primarily is from stress. So if we come back to stress again, we're going to talk about the two types of stress that can be kicking stuff out in your body, primary and secondary. And I'm going to start first with secondary. Secondary stress or secondary stressors are our reactions to our symptoms, to the sensations we have in our body that are unpleasant, uncomfortable, painful, irritable, all this kind of stuff. Our reactions to these symptoms can be stress reactions. They're called secondary reactions, and they can be amplifiers of what we're already feeling, or they can cause your symptoms to persist because your brain is creating more stress around the symptoms you feel. And the reason we call it secondary stressors is because it comes in after the symptoms here. So when the symptom goes up, or you notice your symptom or your uncomfortable sensation, and then you start stressing about that symptom or sensation, that's called secondary stress. You start worrying, you start getting concerned, you start doubting, you start going for all these treatments, you start becoming hopeless or despair, you become frustrated, irritated, you start creating more emotional stress, more mental stress, catastrophizing. These are secondary stressors to your symptoms. And again, they can blow the symptom up further or prolong it or keep it going again for a longer period of time or in an elevated state. So we need to remove the secondary stress. And that's the first thing you want to do, is you want to remove your stress around the symptoms. If the symptoms are caused by stress, which is the primary stress, we're going to talk about that in a moment, then we don't want any more stress. We have to turn off the stress coming from our brain into our body around the symptoms. Otherwise, like I said, we just blow it up, we prolong the recovery. And as long as we know that this is nociplastic or neuroplastic symptoms in the body, we shouldn't be stressing about them. There isn't anything really wrong or concerned in the body that we should start treating these symptoms as physical symptoms, okay, that would need physical attention. They're not the same as what we see with nociceptive pain, which again is symptoms are caused by something in your body like muscles and ligaments and tissue and other tissues like your disc or your bone, some type of inflammation. Okay, or neuropathic conditions when there's damage to the nerves themselves, like diabetic neuropathy or some type of nerve injury. All right, these are not the same thing. These are chronic somatic symptoms, so longer than 3 or 6 months. And they typically, what we know and understand is they have they have a mental component to it. They have a brain component to it. They have a stress component to it. So stress is the general term. We can use that word. It's well known and people understand that. And that makes sense that, look, these are stress symptoms in your body, not structural symptoms. So we want to look and see what are the primary stressors now. So again, I talked downstream here, secondary stressors from your symptom. But if we go over here and talk about primary stressors, these are the causes to the original symptoms that kick up the symptoms. And again, then we secondarily react to the symptoms with more stress possibly that makes it worse. So the primary stress, okay, just like it sounds, it's primary. It's the cause, you can say, of your somatic symptoms. What are these stressors? Now, there could be many, and they can be happening right now in current life. What type of stress are you dealing with now, currently? Now, maybe you are dealing with different relationship stress. Maybe you're dealing with your spouse or partner, children, or parents, or close friends, or coworkers, something like that that's been going on. Maybe you're dealing with a lot of financial stress. Maybe you're dealing with stress from work that's overwhelming, or a combination of a number of different stressors that's quite high for you right now. Well, that could easily be kicking up somatic symptoms in your body. That's one possibility. You may also have old stress. If you think back, when did this start? What was happening at the time your symptoms began? You can explore that and see, was there elevated stress then in your life? And if so, has it passed? Is it done with? Or is it something that's still happening? Or you haven't processed that stress yet. You haven't worked through it to release what's there. It's still bugging you, still bothering you in your mind. That's something you want to address. Okay, we could be stressing about the future as well. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen here and there and this or that? So there could be a number of things we could be stressing about, past, present, and future. But the bottom line is stress creates stress symptoms in the body. Okay, I always say, where does the stress go from your mind? It goes into your body. It doesn't shoot out your head, right? Common sense, but we've cut the neck off, we cut the head off from the body, or mind from the body. We want to bring that back and say, look, you can have stress coming from your mind, easily causing symptoms in your body. Now, these are stressors in your life. You also got the stress from your own brain, and that stress could be your own patterns of thinking, which could be quite negative. I talk about negative thinking as a stress. You could also be having personality traits or behaviors that create stress internally. These are internal drivers of stress. One example of that would be self-criticism, or being hard on yourself, or really brutal on yourself, or beating yourself up, okay, putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Well, that's stress. Okay, and some of the personality traits that we see that people are doing from something they've learned, those things can actually kick off stress in you because you're not being authentic. You're not being who you want to be or would like to be. You might be people pleasing or appeasing, or you're trying to make everything perfect so you feel better. Well, those things come with a lot of stress. And it's very possible that those things could be kicking up somatic symptoms in your body, or at least contributing to them. So what are the sources of stress for you? Primary stressors that can kick off these somatic symptoms in your body. They're called stress symptoms, BS, brain signals of stress, or brain sensations in your body. Again, I call it BS. It is a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of stress. It's a bunch of stress. And we want to address these stressors, both secondary and primary. And so the first thing I want you all to do is to address the secondary stressors that you have around these symptoms. And I see this all the time, where there's stress going on, a symptom goes up or increases, and the person's now stressing about it more on the back end. And that's also possible where somebody doesn't have a lot of stress anymore. I talk to certain people where they say, yeah, I was stressed at the time my symptoms started, but not anymore. I'm pretty much okay now. But they're continuing to stress about the symptoms themselves. So remember, chronic somatic symptoms, chronic pain, researchers note that that becomes a disease in and of itself. And for some people, the stress about the symptoms keeps it going. And the symptoms become conditioned and learned. And we are constantly negatively reacting to what we're feeling. That's another stressor, right? So the symptom itself can become a stressor, as well as some of the other things I mentioned here. So you've got a lot of sources of stress that you can look to. But again, the bottom line here, the bottom line, everybody, is that stress is stress. It goes into your body, it turns on a bunch of different chemicals, it's electrical signals, it activates different things, inflammation, it causes constriction and tightening and tensing of muscles. It does a lot of things in your body. It affects your digestion potentially. And so that sympathetic arm of your autonomic nervous system can get highly activated, or possibly you go into a deep parasympathetic freeze state, which will also be kicking out different types of symptoms. So there's different ways this can manifest in your bodies. And again, you can go and get these diagnoses from the doctors, which again, a lot of times don't help because they're not addressing the root causes here, which is your mind and your brain and the stress. They're only looking at this from a physical level, physical stress, physical tissues, failing to look at the mind and looking at the mental stress, the emotional stress, the social stress. Okay, these type of things is very important, and they can be the primary drivers of your symptoms. They can be the creators of your symptoms. So let's see if we can all get after our secondary stress around these symptoms. I want you to minimize that, remove that, because there's nothing to stress about. This is just caused by stress in the first place. And start to look to some of your primary stressors and stresses that are potentially contributing to these somatic symptoms in your body. And the bottom line is we want to reduce the stress, all stress. We can't eliminate stress because we all have stress in life, but we're trying to reduce it and learn how to work with it in healthy, good ways so it doesn't impact our bodies in these somatic symptom ways. If you like the video, again, guys, please give it a thumbs up. If you're looking for support, you can find me at thepainpt.com. I offer individual consultation treatment. I also offer group classes or group coaching once a week for 2 hours to help people understand this more and learn some strategies and practices that they can incorporate daily to get out of these somatic symptoms. Thanks a bunch, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.